The story of alcohol. It's a wild one. It's a substance that has shaped entire societies and fueled global empires. But it might have all started with a single, very confused chimpanzee. Today, we're diving into the surprising history of alcohol. So where did it all come from? When you think about the origins of alcohol, you probably picture ancient breweries, maybe some Roman vineyards. But the real story is way older, completely accidental, and it involves a happy little accident in the animal kingdom. Okay, picture this. A chimpanzee is wandering around and finds a pile of plums that have fallen off a tree. They're super ripe, kind of mushy, and they're giving off this sweet, almost intoxicating smell. The chimp eats its fill and a little while later starts to feel, well, a little strange, a little buzzed. That unsuspecting ape just experienced the effects of naturally occurring alcohol, a process that we humans would one day learn to control on a massive scale. And that leads us perfectly into our first section, an accidental discovery. Because what that chimp experienced wasn't magic. It was just simple natural science, a process that was happening all over the world, just waiting to be found. The process behind that buzz is called fermentation. It all happens when these microscopic organisms, called yeasts, which are basically everywhere, find sugar, like in those overripe plums, and start to feed on it. As they eat the sugar, they produce a byproduct, a compound called ethanol, and that is the active ingredient in every alcoholic drink we have. So the recipe is surprisingly simple. You take sugar from fruit or grain, you add yeast, and what you get is ethanol. Nature perfected this formula long before we ever got involved. So once humans figured out how to control this natural process, what happened? Well, we did what humans do best. We got creative and made an incredible variety of drinks all across the ancient world. We don't know the exact moment someone first made an alcoholic beverage on purpose, but our earliest solid evidence takes us all the way back to 7000 BCE in China. Get this, archaeologists found residue in these ancient clay pots that revealed a fermented drink made from rice, millet, grapes, and honey. That's over 9,000 years ago. Just incredible. And what's really cool is this wasn't just a one-off thing. All around the world, completely different cultures independently figured out fermentation. The key was simply using whatever grew locally. So in Mesopotamia, they used cereal grains to make beer. In Rome, it was all about grapes for wine. Down in Mexico, they used cactus sap for a drink called pulque. And of course, in Japan, rice was used to make sake. And you have to understand, this wasn't some rare delicacy. It became a fundamental part of daily life. In places like ancient Egypt, beer was so common and so essential that it was actually paid to workers as part of their daily wages. Can you imagine getting beer as part of your paycheck? But as alcohol wove itself into the very fabric of daily life, a familiar tension started to build. A conflict that's still with us today, which brings us to our next section, a blessing and a curse. You see, humanity quickly developed a really complex relationship with alcohol. On one side, you had Greek physicians who would prescribe wine for good health, and poets who claimed it fueled their creativity. It was even an essential part of many religious rituals. But on the other side, you had philosophers warning against its abuse, and many religions started to see intoxication as a sin, which eventually led to a general ban within Islam. Now, for thousands of years, this debate played out with drinks that were all relatively low in strength. But then a major technological leap happened that was about to change the game entirely. This brings us to the invention of distillation. You see, for all that time, there was a natural limit to how strong a drink could get, and that limit was about 13% alcohol. Why? Well, it's actually kind of ironic. The alcohol becomes toxic to the very yeast that creates it. Once the concentration hits that level, the yeast dies off, fermentation stops, and the alcohol content just flatlines. But that all changed in the 9th century. Drawing on Arabic writings, people developed a new process, distillation. The concept is pretty clever. You boil a fermented liquid, and since alcohol boils at a lower temperature than water, it turns into vapor first. If you can capture and cool that vapor, you can create something far, far stronger than ever before. So here's how it works in a nutshell. You boil the liquid, the alcohol vaporizes, you capture that vapor and cool it back down, and the result is a liquid with a much, much higher concentration of alcohol. Suddenly, that 13% ceiling was shattered. The era of spirits had officially begun. So let's just quickly recap this incredible timeline. We go from the very first evidence of fermented drinks in 7000 BCE to beer being used as a daily wage in ancient Egypt, all the way to the game-changing invention of distillation in the 9th century. And all of that sets the stage for the 1600s, when these new, powerful spirits would change the world. And this leads us to our final section, where alcohol transforms from just a cultural beverage into a powerful global commodity. This is fuel for global expansion. So what made these distilled spirits so revolutionary? Well, for starters, unlike beer and wine, they didn't spoil, which made them perfect for long sea voyages. You could even add some to your water barrels to help preserve the water. This stability and potency turned them into a vital trade commodity, so valuable that they were often used as a form of currency. Now, this new economic power had a very dark side. During the Age of Exploration, spirits became a key tool of colonization. European traders sailed to places like Africa with huge amounts of brandy and gin, trading the potent alcohol directly for enslaved people, for vast tracts of land, and for valuable natural resources. So by the 1600s, alcohol had traveled this almost unbelievable path. It went from something that just gave a chimpanzee a buzz from some fallen fruit to becoming a literal engine of global commerce, conquest, and exploration, with all the complicated consequences that came along with it. Which leaves us with a final question to think about. From a simple, natural accident to a force that helped build and break empires, a substance seen as both a divine gift and a destructive curse, how does this incredibly complex legacy continue to shape our societies, our cultures, and our own lives today?